On our first segment, for our wellness and health segment, we are speaking to Ayesha Essop Mohammed. Now, Ayesha Essop Mohammed, as previously spoken about, she is an emotional health and wellness coach. And today we're going to be speaking about a particular topic about distinguishing between failure and lesson, which I find interesting because everybody, we go through so many stuff in life, and then some of the moments that we encounter in life, they're bad, and we can't distinguish between, should it be like a failure, should we take it as a failure, or it's actually a lesson to proceed to doing something better. And now we're going to be speaking to a life coach who actually will be elaborating on that and coaching us on tips that we can take on going on this journey. I am speaking to Ayesha. Assalamu alaikum, Ayesha. How are you?
Wa alaikum salam. Alhamdulillah, and you, Duru?
I'm super, super happy to speak to you. I am really excited because, as a listener, I'm just listening to you. I'm like, okay, she sounds so interesting. I wonder how, interactive I would be with her until I got the chance to actually speak to you. I'm very honored. I'm very honored. I've taken notes from your last, interview. And today I'm going to be taking more and more, especially on this topic about dealing with failures and lessons in life. And what sparked this conversation was last week when you had a conversation with Mariamia, and she spoke about the fact that she had she hosted actually a dinner. I remember clearly, and then somebody sent her a message to say that she wasn't necessarily a good host, which I would find offensive, honestly, if I was in her shoes. But anyway, and she didn't know how to take it as a lesson or a failure, because getting a comment like that, you put so much effort yourself, into like hosting something like that. And when somebody comes up to you and says, you know what, I don't think you were really that good, or I don't think your food was that good, it's a bit like, it's a bit emotional, and I would like, and I would like for you to just first start by explaining the difference between what a lesson is and also a failure.
Okay, so the difference between a failure and a lesson is only in your mindset. It's how you view it. A failure is something when you stop completely and you say, right, I'm not good at this, I failed, and you stop completely. Then that's a failure, because now you've actually given in to what it is. A lesson, on the other hand, is something that you're going to learn from, you're going to improve. So it's all about your mindset. It's how you consider the situation. The difference between a failure and a lesson is also in the language that you speak to yourself in. Some of us tend to speak to ourselves in a very negative, harsh way. True. So that could determine whether the situation is a failure or a lesson. And also your emotional state and your well-being will also determine how you view a situation, whether you're going to chalk it off as a failure or as a lesson. So when it comes to mindset, there's a quote, a very interesting quote that says something to this effect, that the mind makes a terrible master but a beautiful slave, which means that if you allow your mind to become your master, you're going to end up in doom and gloom. But if you gain control over your mind and you make your mind your slave, then you're good to go. So the question comes about, can you change your mindset? Yes, you definitely can. How would you go about doing that? By replacing every negative thought you have with a positive one. So if you are a person who is a very negative person and you get these negative thoughts throughout the day, that I'm so bad at this, so I can't do this, so I can't do that, immediately you're going to replace it with something positive, something that you're good at doing or one of your strengths. So in this way, you start changing your mindset and you start looking at things in a more positive light. And then the language we speak to ourselves, they say you should speak to yourself the way you're going to speak to somebody else.
True,
for example, if a friend comes to you and says, look, Duru, I've really messed up and I didn't do well in this, or I didn't study and I failed, or you're automatically going to take on an encouraging tone with your friend, and you're going to spur that person on and encourage them to try better, or let's see, where can we help you? Where have you actually gone wrong? But when it comes to ourselves, we come down so hard upon ourselves, and we just are so harsh with ourselves. So that itself, we need to change. We need to change the language you speak to yourself, and speak to yourself as kindly as you would speak to the next person. And then if your emotional wellness, if you determine your strengths and your weaknesses. If you already know which areas in life you are really good at, and you know your weaknesses, and you've taken responsibility now for starting to work on your weaknesses or your weak areas, you're already aware of this. So when you come into a situation where you haven't done as well as you hoped to, it's not as difficult for you to accept because you are already aware that this is a learning area for you. So you tend to become a little bit more accepting of your faults because you already know that this is an area that needs to be worked on, and you've already taken the positive step of starting to work it out. So if you in a state of emotional wellness, that already will determine how you're going to view a situation, whether you're going to chalk it up as a failure or you're going to take it as a lesson and learn and improve from that.
So I would like to, I think it's very interesting as you mentioned that, the mind is where everything starts. And as we all know, like the mind drives everything within the human body, your
Mm-hmm.
actions, also even your emotions, also your thoughts rather. And I would like to
Definitely.
ask when it comes to kind of, you know, noticing, how can one notice if something is a is a failure? Because it's not that easy. You can't just necessarily say, okay, cool, I've experienced this and it's a failure. Should it be a failure from the get-go because you didn't achieve what you wanted, or should it be a lesson? How do we in a situation distinguish that this is a failure and I need to better myself on that?
Well, I would say the only time you stop learning is when you're dead, right? So for as long as you're alive, every situation is a lesson because for as long as you have time left to live, you have time to improve in that certain area. So, like I said earlier, if you're going to chalk it down as something you have failed at, then in that area you will fail. But if you look at it as a lesson and you're going to learn from it, then it's going to be a lesson. And if you consider most of the successful people in the world, they never got it right on the first attempt. If you read their bios or you
Mm.
listen to their stories, they'll tell you how many attempts it took for them to actually succeed in the areas that they're working in. So if you give up at the first time and you chalk it down to failure, you'll never know whether you're going to be successful in that area or not. Um, so yeah, every time you don't do as well as you ought to, look at it subjectively and objectively and learn from it. And the next time you go and you do the same task, you're going to do it better because now you've learned what not to do or how to do certain things.
I think that when we speak about this, one thing that goes through my mind is that this is a topic that focuses on one's self, individuality, in a sense that it kind of challenges how you perceive yourself, your thoughts
Yes.
about yourself, what consumes you most of the time, what you spend most of the time listening to, doing, and also the people that you're around. It's basically even with your own how your mind operates. So when it comes to like channeling our mind to think positively, because as you mentioned that you find someone like Bill Gates, right, who before
Mm-hmm.
they became a millionaire, they really needed to get windows out there, but it wasn't like a one day thing. It was a constant, rise and fall, right? So how does one channel their mind and say that, you know what, I'm not gonna allow this first step or this first attempt, which happens to, you know, which I happen to fail at,
Mm-hmm.
to determine my destiny from there on. How do you channel your mind? How do you even channel your surrounding to focus on the positivity and see everything as a lesson?
So there's a few things that you could do. Like I said earlier, is get to know yourself. If you know your strengths and weaknesses, that already puts you in a better light to accept the mistakes that you've made and the constructive criticism that you will receive because you're already aware of your strengths and your weaknesses. So I say getting to know yourself and really understanding your strengths and weaknesses, that makes a really big difference in how you perceive things and see things. Also, I would say occupy yourself in your mind with learning. You can sit and ruminate about all the things you've done wrong and you can become miserable about all the mistakes you've made and your so-called failures and things like that. Or you can occupy yourself constructively with learning from what you've done wrong or learning further in the areas you want to develop yourself in. And in the time that we're living in, there's no shortage of information. So at our fingertips, there's information on any subject that you want. So it's very easy now to occupy yourself and your mind with positive learning. Also to engage with positive people. Some people are of the personality type, alhamdulillah, where they just give you a boost and they just know how to encourage you and make you feel good about yourself. And it's really important to surround yourself with such people. Whereas if you surround yourself with people who are negative and see life as one difficult uphill battle and everything that you do has to be perfect or it's a failure, then automatically you're going to feel in that light. So you need to surround yourself with people who are going to boost your morale and help you and push you forward. And also then to do more of the things that you enjoy, because that will boost your confidence as well.
I would have to agree on that, though.
Sorry?
I'm saying I would have to agree on that doing the things that you love boosts your emotions. It's not a drag.
Yeah, but obviously now we can't only do the things we enjoy. We have to sometimes do the things we don't really enjoy.
That give us a challenge. And
yes, but if you do the things you're good at and you enjoy, that'll boost your confidence and your morale. So when you do things and you go to tackle things you don't really enjoy, you just don't feel so bad doing them because you've already fed your mind and yourself with all the things you really enjoy.
So, last week you spoke about emotional journaling, right? And I took note of that because it was something I myself wrote a lot of my emotions, especially, I'm a revert myself, and I went through a lot, emotionally. I had anxiety and feeling like, okay, how do I go about this new religion? It's really nice, alhamdulillah, but it's a bit tricky. And I kept on writing down, it is. So I kept on writing down on my journal. I didn't give it a name, because you just write down. And I wrote down my, my emotions, what I felt and what emotions and thoughts were going through my mind at that time. And also, last week when you mentioned also gratitude journaling, which I didn't know was a thing, where you just wrote everything that you are happy about or that the grateful part of it. And then you mentioned that that kind of eliminates that emotion, like anxiety and depression, feeling that you have, because you kind of realize you start realizing the gift sorry, when you said that anxiety and depression starts making you realize, not making you realize the gifts that you have, the gifts that you have presently in your life. And then I thought about it and I was like, that's actually interesting. We don't actually do that as human beings. And would you say that changing your mindset, this type of journaling would actually make sense, where you have your emotional journaling, when you write everything that you feel at that point, all your thoughts, whether they're negative or positive, and coming back and kind of, pulling yourself down to the humbling, like humbling yourself in a way, and writing down all the things that you notice that you have in your life, in order to boost that that feeling inside of you, that at least I have an opportunity to do this, at least I had that and have that, appreciating that. So do you think that changing your mindset through journaling, especially these two type of journalings, would help?
Yes, definitely. When you talk about your strengths and your weaknesses and appreciating what you have, some people may misunderstand this to mean that you're building your ego or you're going to become arrogant now when you're working on your strengths, But the way I look at it is that in order to know your creator, you need to know yourself. If you are in a position where you can acknowledge the strengths that your creator has given you, it creates a sense of gratitude towards him, and you become more aware of all that he's given you. So it actually humbles you if you work on it in the correct way, because you then attribute all your strengths and your positive personality traits to your creator. And because you are now in a sense of gratitude, you are more eager to work on your weaknesses because you want to improve yourself. So it doesn't lead to arrogance. In fact, I feel it's more humbling because you become more aware of your relationship with your creator once you start doing the work of understanding who you actually are and your strengths and weaknesses. And yes, the main way, or I would say actually the most important way you can do this is by writing it down, because when you have random thoughts, there's no way of sort of putting that into something concrete. For example, if a random thought comes to your mind,
Mm,
I am so resourceful. Now, how are you going to track that thought?
mm,
Whereas if you write it down as a strength, I'm a resourceful person, and you list 3 to 4 or even 5 situations in which you have come through for the situation as a resourceful person, then that is now concrete. You've got it written down. You can actually look at it, and you can do the same thing for your weaknesses or your weak areas. For example, if you're a person who is prone to others use backbiting, for example,
yeah.
if you're a person, and I think we all tend to, if we're in a situation where
Saying
it's
certain
happening,
things like
we
we
all
fall
tend
witness for, oh my God,
to
did you
get
know what
pulled into it,
she
right?
said? All these things.
Exactly. And then you just feel horrible about yourself
Yeah,
afterwards, right?
true.
But it's a weakness. So if you write it down, I'm prone to backbiting, or it's a weakness for me. Now you know you've taken responsibility for this weakness. Now you need to be accountable for it. Fine, this is my weakness. What am I going to do about it? I can't just sit with this as my weakness. And when you write it down, it actually it sort of niggles you more to work on it. So then you can even write down the steps that you can take towards getting out of this situation or out of this bad habit. But if you just have a random thought today, I shouldn't backbite, by tomorrow the thought's gone and you repeat with more backbiting or whatever, you know what I'm saying? There's no checking the thought. Whereas
Yeah.
if you journal, it makes you more aware of everything about yourself.
But one thing I need to ask, right? And I know that this was a much of a concern with, I remember my best friends, actually two of my best friends rather, because I was in a process of just writing down my feelings and not you know expressing them
Yeah.
because I was like nobody's not going to understand and I'm dealing with so much and I'm getting so much anxiety. And
Mm-hmm.
and there was the learning process of like picking up how to read Quran or changing a certain lifestyle to fit Islamic ruling like clothing and
Mm-hmm.
stuff, and most of the time, and also you have to deal with like family drama also because they might not be so accepting and everything like that.
Definitely, definitely.
I feel like that moment helped me as much, but it also made me an introvert. And it's someone that I'm not. I'm not an introvert. I talk a lot and I engage with so many people. Even if I see you randomly and we take the same bus, I would just speak to you and we have a long conversation. But I found myself in that position where instead of like it helped me a lot with my emotions, but it made
Mm-hmm.
me like introverted. I don't necessarily want to talk anymore. I just want to write down my feelings. Is that the negative part about journalism? Is there, I mean, journaling, is there a negativity behind it that we should
Well,
recognize?
I I wouldn't say that, because to me, well, it's a personal opinion, but to me, being an introvert is really not a bad thing. And sometimes the more quiet you become in life, the more aware you are of what's going on around
Mm,
you. So I wouldn't call it a negative trait, but it's also in life, anything that we do, we need to find a healthy balance. And that would go the same with journaling. There's
mm,
certain things you're going to write about, and there's certain things that you need to talk about. There's certain times where it's very healthy and actually better for you to be by yourself. And then there's other times where it's better for you to be with people. So it's about striking a healthy balance and trying to find within yourself what you're comfortable discussing with others and what you're not comfortable discussing. What probably could have also been the case with you is because of what you were going through and the anxiety also becomes very draining. So
mm.
sometimes we just don't have the energy to engage with people. It's not necessarily that you becoming introvert, it's probably just that your vibration is very low
Yeah.
and you just don't have the energy that is necessary to engage with people in the way that you used to. But once you start practicing some self-care and taking actual time out to be by yourself and processing your thoughts, you find that you start regaining your energy and then you can engage with people in the way that you used
That is actually, quite interesting because I remember growing up from my side, I was very jumpy, as I mentioned. I was very hyperactive, and
to.
now I can literally enjoy my own company. And journaling helped me. It really did because it kind of made me, one thing about journaling, as you mentioned, that, when you become a bit silent in life, you are able to notice a lot. And that's what I took from journaling. That when I became silent, when I became like how I would say introverted in a way,
Mhm.
I was able to just allow certain arguments to go, like certain things like petty fights with my younger sister or
It
other
doesn't
people.
matter
Like, it doesn't
anymore.
matter anymore because you've become
Anymore.
mature. And I don't know if it's
Exactly.
maturity. You just feel like...
That's what I wanted to touch on that. It's actually part of the self-maturation process
Yeah.
where you go through that cycle where, as a baby and you grow up and you go through the cycle. And as you start maturing, you find that your need to be with people is not as great as it was in your teens. So it's all part of the natural process of life. But like I say, it's very important to keep a track of yourself and start noticing when it's now bordering on the unhealthy, and then you got to do certain things to, bring to normalize or neutralize yourself again. And you can journal about this as well, so that you can keep a note of how long this introvert stage lasts, and
I'm getting myself back.
You will, inshallah.
Inshallah. But this topic has been quite interesting for me because it teaches us that, as human beings, we're going through a journey and it's not going to be easy. And we all know as Muslims that Allah always never burdens us soul with whatever it cannot bear. We all know that the trials and tribulations we were going through, even sometimes the good moments, are a test from Allah, because you think that just because you're having an easy life, everything is good, I don't have to worry about anything, but you're kind of forgetting that you might actually forget that 1 second of salah or something like that, or you might not make dhikr or whatever. And for someone else who's going through a lot, they feel depressed and feel like, they being pulled away, they feel like this is heavy for me. I think that journaling and also understanding lessons in life enable you and equip you to be more grateful, I would say. You become...
It makes, like I said, it makes you more aware. You become so aware of everything. You even become aware of what you're saying and what you're doing, because by the end of the evening you're going to hold yourself accountable. You may not find it in the beginning, but as you go on, you actually realize that you become so self-aware and so self-conscious, not in a bad way, in a good way, because now you're keeping track of yourself, and you know that by the evening, you yourself are going to hold yourself accountable. What have I said to hurt somebody? What have I done to offend somebody? What have I done that I need to seek forgiveness from somebody? Because we know that we don't want to go to bed with all those burdens on our plate. So it brings about a very great awareness about yourself and your surroundings. You just become more aware of everything, and that is the idea and the aim, is to create mindfulness, because we go through life not even aware of what we do. Sometimes we eat a complete meal, Guru, and we really haven't even acknowledged the taste on our taste buds, because we're eating it mechanically, right? Because we live in such an automated time and such an automated life. But once you start creating an awareness about yourself, you become very mindful about every situation and every moment in life. And by the end of the day, you realize that you've had a more fulfilling day because you are more aware of what's going on around you.
Well, Jazakallah for this wonderful segment. I hope our listeners have taken note of lessons and failures, how to determine between the two in previous experiences that you've had, even in current ones. And I hope that everybody took, in my culture, we say that, the person that has an ear, I don't know how to translate it in English directly, but I know we say that somebody that has an ear will listen, and what they mean by that is that when you listen, you take action. And I hope that people will make, a difference in their life from this. Thank you very much, Jazakallah. So I was going to call you earlier, Ayesha. Jazakallah very much for this wonderful lesson. And to our listeners, we're going to take a short break and we're going to come back. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Jazakallah, Dudu.
It's a wonder how kids get anything done these days. With all the distractions, when do they even get time to study?